Hello and welcome back to SML Total Access. I'm Primetime 000, and with me is Mike. What's going on, Mike?
I'm just happy to be here, man. Hopefully Matt doesn't get too upset with me taking time away with his man, but I guess we'll find out.
What an episode this is going to be for sure. I think probably one of our best ones yet. Hey, you know how it goes, Mike. 4 downs, extra point. Let's start off first down. Hey, do quarterbacks really matter? We've seen some moves in the SML. Some guys swear they don't matter. Some guys do. What's your thoughts on the subject?
My thoughts are it probably doesn't matter as much as people think it does, unless you have one of the top three guys being Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or probably Lamar Jackson. Anyone that lacks any sort of dynamic traits, I think is more or less replaceable as long as you're not trying to, use 57 overall rookie quarterbacks. I don't know who would do that though. Beyond that, though, I'm firmly after plenty of experience in the camp that, as long as you find somebody that's halfway decent,
Yeah.
you'll probably be okay for the most part.
Yeah, I think that some of it does come down to play style, and some guys obviously require a more superior quarterback than others. Um, Dan gets a lot of credit for winning with poor quarterbacks or below average quarterbacks, but he also doesn't demand too much out of his quarterbacks. Whereas Faz, you've seen some struggles when Jordan Love wasn't quite as developed as he could have been. So yeah, I think it does play a little bit of a role in what your offense is. But yeah, like you said, if it's not any quarterbacks besides the top five or top three are pretty much the same in terms of. I mean, you can change them out. So yeah, I think they do matter, but not as much as what people think. So yeah, I agree with you. Um,
Say that there are probably secret underlying metrics that make certain quarterbacks terrible for no reasons, like Carson Wentz, who we both can just admit that is just, despite looking decent on paper, he just can't throw the ball accurately at all.
yeah, it's which is weird because Carson Wentz is actually one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in real life. But that's besides the point.
I'm firmly off that train, man. I'm ready for him to go elsewhere. He can continue his career doing something else.
Yeah. And guys, if you didn't know already, I'm kind of the voice of reason on this podcast today. And Mike's going to be the one who, Mike, he's going to give all these crazy takes. And I'm going to have to try to settle him down a little bit. But anyway, moving on to second down here. Hey, rivals in the SML. I don't think there's a lot of great rivalries right now. Maybe that's just me, but it's been brought up here and there in chat lately, probably because of Colts Jaguars, me and Matt. But do rivals really need to trash talk to be rivals?
The answer is no. It's obviously no. I mean, you're going to disagree with me up and down on this one, and I'm sure other people that love controversy and drama and whatever the hell else will say the same. But no, of course not. They're, some of the better rivalries are people that just, respect each other's gameplay and try to put on a good game every time they go out there. You don't need somebody hyping it up and bringing unnecessary attention because any game that people want to watch, any good rivalry, anything with any sort of stakes in it is going to build itself. You don't need the extra talk to build something that's already just naturally getting built up.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you for the most part. And so we got me and Matt get some flack because we're a little close right now. And I think it's not that we don't trash talk, but it's more that hey, you guys are too nice to each other. And all of our games have been settled by one score or less. And I honestly think that as long as the games are good, it doesn't matter. And me and Matt being nice to each other is no different than Bomber and QP being too scared to mention each other on a podcast. Like I watched a podcast the other day. I think it was Stone Searching or whatever it's called, and QP like didn't even want to mention Bomber's season. Like he actually said, "No, I don't want to talk about him." Like that is just weird to me. But I
Here's
also go on.
here's the thing, and this hopefully will maybe fire you up. The reason why you and Matt don't have that same dynamic is because nobody thinks you and Matt are rivals. You guys are not an example here. You're not rivals at all. You guys play competitive games, but you're not rivals. That's just plain and simple. Maybe that's the unspoken truth or something that you didn't even think about there, but that's the fact.
What makes a
Nobody views
rivalry?
A rivalry is a game that has something that has true meaning behind it and true measuring there. Nobody cares about what happens with the Colts and the Jaguars. You both are going to make the playoffs pretty much every year. It doesn't matter. You guys can hold hands down the tunnel. You guys can kiss at halftime. Nobody cares at all what happens there in that game because the results don't matter. Whereas you have different games, like you just mentioned the Browns and the Ravens. Those games really matter. If they lose to each other, one of them may not make the playoffs.
So
It's very simple.
I actually disagree with you here because you talk about true measuring and true meaning. Colts Jaguars week, I guess it'd be 18 of last season. Literally, it was win and you're in. If Jaguars won, I was out, or if I won, then Matt was out, and I beat Matt. Obviously, made the playoffs and he was out. But that was, I mean, that's as meaningful as it can get for the regular season.
Sure, but the other argument there is the fact that last season you had the Titans playing above their heads, and this season they're back down to earth, and it's a much clearer path for both of you guys to get in there this time around.
Yeah, it could be, but Monty's playing better than Bomber right now. I don't know. I think a rivalry, um, because they're at the end of the day, I think a rivalry is more of the relationship between the two teams and if they're going back and forth. No, I mean, obviously it builds it up like the Colts Patriots of the 2000s and 2010s, early 2010s. But when the games mean more, it hypes up the rivalry. But I mean, you get the I don't know, IU Purdue rivalry here in Indiana. Nobody cares, but between those two teams, it matters. So I think it's a little bit of if you play each other a lot and if the games are close and it tends to go back and forth a little bit, I think that's what makes a rivalry. And like the extra ingredients are if these are good teams.
Here's the kicker. Matt doesn't think you're his rival because Matt thinks he's a terrible player. Simple as that.
Yeah, Matt. I actually don't consider Matt my rival. Really, I think we put on good games, and I
There you
think
go.
they're entertaining. But I also think that for people who are are judgmental of that, and me and Matt saying whatever we say, but they don't want to mention their division quote unquote rival because they're afraid of them. I think that's a little soft as well.
You've only got like maybe three rivalries in the SML currently. You've got Clink and Pauly. You've got Bomber QP, maybe. You got Dan and Faz. Those are the only three rivalries I really can see. And I guess you can throw Meats and Dump in there if you really want to, but
Yeah.
that one's hard
Did you
to
say
kind of.
Polyclinky? Polyclinky.
Pauly Clink for sure, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks Matt's my rival, part of me doesn't, but it's hard for me to. I don't know. So anyway, moving on now to third down. Mid-season, we're halfway through the year. We some good has happened, some bad has happened for some teams. Bomber's been up and down and kind of on the up lately. Dan started off, and he's been. What's your thoughts halfway through this season?
My thoughts are things are pretty much playing out as you would expect them to. The big interesting thing to me is the surprisingly competitive NFC North, where Clink's finally getting things together, and Finns is putting together a decent season out of Chicago out of nowhere. Beyond that, everything's pretty much what you would expect. You got a little bit of stat gouging everywhere, with some players doing a little bit of spam sort of things, and the thing that stands out there for me on a stat point of view is the fact that every interception leader in terms of interceptions thrown is a terrible team. I wonder if there's anything that goes together there.
Yeah, wow, that is interesting. Yeah, Derek Carr, 29 interceptions so far this season. Um, the trade has not worked out as Fig had hoped, maybe. Um, yeah, halfway through this year, I'm not too surprised with anything. I think that we all, or you should have expected Bomber to maybe not be the number one seed all the time now that his division isn't as tough or as tougher than it was last pre blip. Um, One thing I'm kind of interested in is how that NFC South kind of shakes out. You have Doink Face who can't seem to win a big game really, and then you have Faz who's getting hot, and I'm kind of taking Faz now just to kind of win the NFC. Actually, I don't think the Dump's a real threat. I never have, and I don't think he is this season. So I guess halfway through the year, beyond halfway, I'm expecting, excuse me, Faz to make a clear path. And in the AFC, I feel like there's a lot of solid playing teams right now. The Ravens is one of them. Monty is one of them. I think the Colts are playing well. The Jaguars are playing well. I don't think there's a clear cut team in the AFC.
One thing I will say about the NFC South, Dan's not out of that yet, dude. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen the schedule remaining yet, but just to give you a rundown on Doink Face's remaining schedule: QP, Coop, Foz, Future, and NYT. He cannot lose a single game on the way out there, or he's going to lose a lot of ground in the division because you got two with Foz, you got two with Future. Dan could see himself up there still. Don't write off Dan quite yet. I know that he turned his back on me as a sore spot personally, but that division is going to go down to the wire. And even the front runners there's no way either of them feel locked up right now.
Yeah, I think Dan's in the playoffs for sure, and he's probably gonna make a run at it. Faz's schedule's just as tough as Cube or as Doink Faces, so it's interesting. And hey, one more thing I want to mention: halfway through the year, Titans were number two seed. They're 5-5 now. The Tennessee Freight Trains. Talk about another primer call up guy that primer posse guy that just can't close the deal. It seems like, man, what's going on with your boy?
Do any of us, in terms of any of us being you and myself, do we feel bad to see the Titans losing?
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
That's the best thing that could happen. That team is garbage. It's an absolute dumpster fire of an organization,
Yep.
and they're never going to win a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if it's virtual or otherwise. It's just never going to happen, and that just warms my heart every time you think about it. But the roster gets old. DDNC, he's in the middle of a quarterback, trying to figure out what's going on there, kind of like myself in Miami. But he's got no leader. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. There's no leader riding the ship, and you can only, I guess, run Derrick Henry so much. But 5-5 is about right. I think that's where he's gonna be long term too. I don't know if he's gonna really take that step forward again or not, but. I don't know. I could see him eclipse 10 wins again, but he's probably in the same third place finish the rest of the way.
Yeah, what a shame. Moving on now. Fourth down. Hey, gameplay. We've seen some again, probably some good gameplay, bad gameplay. What's you got any opinions on that, or some things that people should strive for, or what's your thoughts on the gameplay?
Hang on a second. Let me put my QB stud hat on for a moment.
Oh
Um,
no.
I'm not going to go that far, but man, I see a lot of games, and the one thing that sticks out is you see a lot of the same over and over again. Inside zone, stretch, PA rolled out with the high-low concepts, PA crossers, the same stuff, up and down from primer all the way to SML. It's boring. That's the one thing for me. It's boring. Doesn't feel great all the time because you know it's coming, but there's only so much you can do to defend it. I don't know what the true answer there. It's going to be interesting to hear what you say on the topic, but I think that folks need to try to play football more than just strictly playing the video game. That was kind of, again, with my QB stud hat on, the thing that he was, pounding on the desk for the longest time is I get that you're doing A, B, and C, but why are you doing A, B, and C? If it's just because it works in the video game, maybe that's not the best reason to do something.
Yeah, it's interesting because there obviously every year Madden comes out, there's something that is quote unquote OP, or there's some sort of concept or play or plays or move that just seems to be the trend for the year, and that probably stems from YouTube, Madden Ultimate Team, or whatever it comes from, and then at some point it just kind of flows throughout the Madden community. It just whether it's connected franchise or what have you, and um, as a commissioner or somebody, you see these things and you watch them happen. PA rollouts, which kind of happen every year. That's just kind of been a Madden staple forever and ever. Inside zone, kind of again a Madden staple really since I think last five Maddens.
Big
So
time.
there's as a commissioner, it's such a fine. There's a fine balance in what you just have to deem acceptable and whatnot. And there's things I see that legitimately just make my stomach turn. I'm like, dude, like, come on, like you're doing this just to exploit the game. And like you said, you're playing this as a video game more than it is just football. And you're doing a disservice to the league and what you should consider your friends or acquaintances or what have you. Um, I don't care for the rollouts, the instant rollouts especially. I don't care for um, crazy defensive adjustments that are just obviously just trying to cause exploits. The levels concepts on the outside all the time. The deep corner with the middle out route and then a crosser over the middle, like that's been I don't care for that stuff. Um, I think you have to police it and you have to do your best to try to get them to mix it up. And then if it's and you have to hope it's acceptable. I don't know, but and at the same time, you can't run everybody out of town either because then you don't have a league. QB's a great guy, and I would say this to his face, so I'll say it here. He could probably never run a league because he would run everybody out of town. So it's hard to it's hard to find a good balance, I think, and I think that's a line that we'll always toe.
I think that you and I have the same pretty fair level of what we deem as acceptable, and I more or less can be okay with most gameplay as long as we're not doing the obvious things like rolling out all the time or doing just stuff that's just clearly, what are you doing here, man?
Yeah.
Most of the things play wise, as long as you are truly mixing it up as you should be per the rule book, I think is acceptable. You just still hate to see it from an opponent standpoint or a viewer standpoint. You just want it to be like, I don't know if this feels as great as it should be at most points in time, but
Yeah, it's hard when people come like through the primer. They know they read the rules, and then you see it happen. You're like, okay, you know better than this. And is it a malicious intent or is it really ignorance? And you hope somebody doesn't plead ignorance all the time. And that's the thing that kind of frustrates me the most is okay, are you pleading ignorance because you're legitimately ignorant to the rule or you just screwed up, or are you trying to exploit the game and just try to make me look like a fool? Like that's when it actually bothers me more than anything. If you screw up, own up to it. And honestly, like if you just say, hey, look, I screwed up here. I did this. I'm more likely to not even freaking give a suspension if you're honest with me than anything. But I don't know. It's hard. But then I'll watch other leagues play and I'm like, okay, we're in a better spot than 80% of the Madden community that are at our level. So, um, moving on now to the extra point. Hey, primer. What's going on with the primer, Mike?
hard to say, man. We're heading into the off season right now. Not the off season. We're heading into the postseason right now. Week 1 of wild card round. Um, it's been an up and down season. I think we're kind of in a spot where obviously a lot of leagues are trailing off or starting to trail off around the end of the season in real life, heading into the spring and summer months. But we've kind of struggled to maintain more than our top heavy player base recently, which has been interesting to me. We've got a lot of guys that we have added in or that came in, and honestly, you said it earlier. Um, it's not ignorance. These guys are not reading the rule book, and for me, as one of the people in charge there, it's kind of a laughing situation because we see that this is just obvious stuff that shouldn't happen. But Primer more or less is going to always be more of the Wild West than SML is. The folks that we bring up to SML are the people that show what we want to see as a full, well-rounded member, be it contributions from non-gameplay standpoints, solid gameplay, and then being a good schedule and just overall a decent person that we can get along with. You get more of a mixed bag down in Primer, and while that's enjoyable in some aspects because there are a lot of really good guys down there, a lot of guys I don't mind playing with whatsoever. Rounding out the league, getting that bottom half has kind of been a struggle right now. I think we have 5 or 6 open teams. Just had to boot a guy last week or whatever because he was actually insane. But
That's the guy who
it,
texted me and sent me a bunch of middle fingers then.
probably it was AJ Carolina guy. I booted him because he was going off in chat over and over again after I was trying to review the game tape, and there were 4 offenses in the first 2 quarters,
Yeah.
and I didn't even get to halftime. Then I get back and see him going off in Discord. I'm like, well, this makes my job easier. We're just gonna get you on your way and not
Yeah.
worry about it. But you get a lot of that, and that's kind of what happens with a lot of leagues. Is filling out that back part has proven to be difficult, and it's going to continue to be difficult. But overall, I mean, I don't think it's in a poor place. I know we got good leadership down there with myself, NYT, and Graham when he's not on vacation, which is very rare.
Yep.
But we got a good top half, good 15 plus users that I can depend on and rely on to be consistent. And then you got 5 to 10 after that play the games for the most part, but don't really participate too much. And then the rest is kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, that's like you said. For somebody who's in primer or that's actually listening to this, or somebody in the SML that wonders, it should be common sense. When you're building a league, or when I'm built the SML, very rarely Like if we got a good member, did I lose that guy? Like they tend to. I'm trying to count on my fingers how many just good members we just legitimately lost and stayed gone throughout the. I honestly, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I really don't know. But with Primer, it's like you have a solid league and you get those good guys, but then you're losing those guys to the SML. So it's tough, and that's why a lot of quote unquote feeder leagues, or in this case, we're more than that. We're a developmental league. A lot of those fall down and crash because one, they don't have the leadership, and two, they lose those guys who really help support the league outside of the admin team. So I think it's always going to be a struggle for Primer to stay 32 of 32 with 32 decent guys, but I think it's doing its job, and that's where we're getting guys in. We're a constant bloodline to the SML. We're you know we always have a mission there, and we're not. I don't think we're shortchanging ourselves by keeping guys who aren't SML material. If a guy's rude in chat, like you said, if a guy goes crazy, you cut him without a thought. You don't even think about it. You just let him go. And I think that's what Primer's for, and I think that's I think that's good.
Yeah, and not disparaging anybody in Primer right now. Like I said, we got really good guys down there.
Yeah,
And I've always said from the beginning, there's a spot in the SML network for most people out there. As long as you're a good person that plays sim football, we've got a spot somewhere for you.
yeah,
Might not be SML, might be Primer, might be a long time in Primer. Who knows? It's hard to say, but we're going to try to find anybody that's deserving of a spot, a place to play football for a long time.
yeah. No, I agree. Mike, we're at 21 minutes here in the podcast. Do you have any thoughts, comments, concerns?
Not easy breezy, man. I'm glad that it went well. I hope Matt's not too upset here. I know you guys have probably a men's spa treatment or something going on right after, but I hope that you guys get along okay. I know that your air quote rivalry is strong and good, and I know it's a beautiful blossoming flower, and I just hope for nothing for the best for you guys.
I do want to clarify one thing. I do think that Matt, now that I've thought about it some, I think Matt and I are the best rivalry in the SML.
Uh, no.
I'll just say it. So, Matt, if you're listening, thank you. Tiny's probably going to be the one to be most upset about this, actually. He's a jealous type.
Oh,
So,
yeah, shout out to Tiny. Please stop winning, man. I need that pick to be good.
there you go, guys. That was Mike. I'm Prime, SML Commish, Primer Commish, total access, guys. Everybody, thanks for listening, and you have a great night.